Hey, welcome to the next part two. In this stream, I'm just going to talk about if you don't have pure ref. I mean, it is free, it's worthwhile getting it, but if you don't have pure ref, you can use something called Spotlight. So you go up to texture and you click this image. You can load in an image that you've downloaded and then you can add it to Spotlight. So, for example, if I just find any old image, so go to texture, find. And so do an import. Let's see what I've got. Some random image here. So there's a little painting I did. So now that that's imported, click on it, and then you want to click on add to Spotlight, and it basically comes up there. Then the first thing you want to do is scale it down. So that's the little kind of box within a box there. And then just drag in this circular area, or here, it kind of changes the pivot. If you click in this area, it keeps the pivot, and now you can move that where you want. The only disadvantage to this is it won't overlap the UI, but just make that bigger, move that over there, and that would be your reference. And you can build these up, keep adding images to Spotlight, you can sort them. It's very similar to Pure Ref actually. It's all contained in ZBrush. So I just have to press Z to sort of get rid of that, and Shift Z to take it away, or you can turn off Spotlight. Another option is up here, you've got the see-through image, and you can do a little kind of thing where you've got a reference in the background, for example this rose, and do see-through, and you can match whatever that is. But it might be like you've got one of these photos and you match it that way, but it's a little bit of a clash. It's optional, and I've used it a couple of times. So back to where we left off. Now I'm just going to reduce the camera resolution, the camera angle down a bit. I just want it to be so I can kind of see the sides a bit more, even though it might not be 100% accurate to these photos. I'm just trying to match, and really just eyeballing it is the way to go here. There's no information about the camera and all that. I guess you could like find the main file, download it, and look at the details. Sometimes you can find the camera used and the resolution and I don't know, whatever, all that stuff. But I'm just gonna like use the trim dynamic to kind of planarize some of this and pull and push some bits around. I'm just doing what I can whilst in this amount of subdiv. So you remember in the previous session I basically made shortcut keys, so I'm using Y to do my clay build up, a little bit of smoothing here and there, and T for my trim dynamic to kind of planarize some bits, and I'm just kind of guesstimating. J to snake hook, for me J is snake hook because I made shortcut keys. If you don't know how to make shortcut keys, check the previous video and you'll see how I do that. So a little bit of pinch. But yeah, I'm just pretending that that is the maximum resolution that I've got to work with and getting as much as I can get out of it. And I'm just doing pure observation. I'm not trying to like bring this in and you know, match it through, like see through it like that. I like to work just looking, observing, and kind of making a judgment call based on that, and I'll gradually get a little bit closer each time towards the final image. But it's a lot of back and forward and trying some things and just making sure that it all reads well, double checking. I'm just looking at that kind of profile line. There's a slight arc to it, so the arc is kind of measured from the chin to the nose to the forehead, and as a kind of arc. You can even cut out the tip of the nose in your mind and just kind of like draw it from the forehead down, kind of touching the surface of the lips and down, and then kind of just like making sure that's there to some degree, right? And just check around the model quite a lot. You want to check front on and side on quite often. Now there's a thing, if I right click, can be annoying, right? Now I've got everything set up in my little pen here, but if I right click, that panel comes up. You just want to go into your preferences and it's called right click something. Let's see. Yeah, it's quite a busy menu, right? But it's in So it was in interface. Click. Pop up something. Navigation. Okay. In navigation, where it says right click, enable pop up, right? I'm just going to turn that off. That's now fixed that. I just want it to come up with spacebar, right? And I've got all my control in here. I can even change my brushes and everything here as well, but most of the time I'll just use shortcut keys, right? So that's kind of done. I don't want to subdivide yet. There's still loads of work to be done in this now. Like I said before, spend a good 10-15 minutes in the lower subdiv to get some of the shapes right. Spend longer if you want, you know, spend half an hour if you really want to sort of make sure you got everything right, and use multiple references. You'll get closer as you use all these references. You're kind of cross-checking them and making sure that it's all kind of making sense. And if you've got this sort of skull anatomy reference just for placement and get an idea what muscles are there, it's just a guide, but it helps. Right, so just getting as close as possible. Now the eyeball, don't worry about it. Don't try and sculpt in the eye anytime early, right? Just get some shapes close. We're just looking at the skin, the volume of the skin, and is there fatty bits, the shape, the jaws, the positioning of stuff. I'm going to turn off that ground by clicking floor. So you might be tempted to call it a day there and start just going into detail, but there's nowhere near the amount of like foundation being laid down. You can't just find a patch of land, make it flat and build a building on it. You have to like really, you know, dig in and make sure you got enough space to fill out the concrete. Make sure that concrete is flat, you know, and solid, and you've got all your kind of pipe work in place. And maybe then can you start laying some things on top, like your brickwork. So you don't just like build a house out of just brickwork and that's it. You still have all your kingspan insulation, you still got all your gyprock and framework and yada yada yada, and then you got your wallpaper and paint, or your primer, your adhesive, your tiles, your grout, hell, your stickers that you put on your tiles. You know, that's kind of getting into detail. Then the dirt that builds up on top of your tiles over time. Yeah, it's all telling a story. And that's the same for like environment stuff as well. Like, you want to kind of build these things up, they make it interesting, and it's looking for these details, but not right away. You don't look for these details. Alright, you go and build a house, or you're planning to build a house. The wife might be like, oh, I know how it's going to look, but you'd be like, well, I need to sort of plan the logistics of this first. Never mind how it's going to look just yet. So don't rush into those details. You're planning for them, but you don't want to do them right away. So I get a really groggy throat. Right. And besides, if I read Dynamesh here, I just lose a lot of this. So you kind of want to just edge that Dynamesh resolution up a couple of notches at a time. It's the most I've talked in a few weeks. I'm a bit croaky. Right. So the first thing I see is that it looks a bit like a man, right? What makes it like a woman is this kind of triangular, upside down triangle, right? But I need to be watching, I'm not getting too stylized with it. Her head is not a perfect triangle, right? But it does have a bit of a taper to it, and I do kind of have it there, but there's a few things still wrong. Maybe some fat a bit here. I don't want to make her too fat, to make sure there's a little bit of a kind of recess in here as it starts to sort of get really close to the bone. I mean, you can just touch, right, and you can feel mostly bone, a little bit of tissue, bone, bit more tissue, loads of tissue, right? Hardly getting to the bone in there, so there's a big gap in here. And just checking those things in yourself, you know how the skin's sort of folding and stuff like that. Just look at that nose. We're seeing the bottom side of the nose. See, she's got a kind of perky up nose. Perky upwards. It's the technical term. Perky upwards nose. Right, and it's going to get that bottom lip in just to be making some headway with that. Still a bit manly looking. It will look like a man for quite some time until I get to a certain point where it will just click. That clicking point usually doesn't happen to at least a couple hours in, so don't lose faith or anything like that. Just keep going with it. Make sure you check all those sides, because as I pull the front up, the back's getting somewhat neglected. And I have no idea the shape of her head. I'm just making loads of assumptions here. I'm just going to work with the reference I've got. I think I've got enough, maybe not the best profiles, but this one's pretty bang on for most of it. I'm just having a look at this jaw here as it meets. Like that. And it'd be good to get that neck in. And I'm not rushing this at all, right? I want you guys to sort of use this to learn as well. Going to pull that neck out and make it a bit wider at the back and then move it. There's Redynamesh here. So that's why I say don't rush to detail, because you're Redynameshing a lot, you're going to lose that detail, right? If I'm way up at a silly resolution like 200 odd in Dynamesh, right, and I Redynamesh, it's actually just kept all that faceting but gave me more geometry, right? And it's like pointless me going to that point. I see people, they go from here and then they start adding detail. It's not the way to do it. It's like they want, you know, you can't rush that result. They want the final result too quickly. Whereas if you look at artists, how long they take to make something, it's definitely not done in a couple hours. You know, put at least 30 hours into your work at least, and put 100 hours in if you can. Put 300 hours in. You know, if you're doing an hour a day, it would take a year. But if you're working on multiple projects, especially the way the old artists did it, they would work on different paintings because they need to wait for that paint to dry. So we'd have about 3 paintings on the go. Don't want too many, of course, because you might clash with ideas. But they also feed off each other. So you see, I'm just using that neck there just to help get a few proportions in, and I can kind of get the angles a little bit better. But I do really like just observing and see if I can get it right that way, because you want to improve on that observation skill, not just tracing it, right? It's fine. It's no law against anything, you know. I'm already breaking the rules by using digital, right? I should be using clay. Yeah. Doesn't have to be strict, right? Just make some nice rules that work, that also trains you. You know, you want to train yourself, not just like be skipping all the nice steps. So yeah, I'm just making sure that when I place this, that all the proportions are in sort of place, right? There is a decent kind of correlation here. Alright, there might be a little bit out with the lips and stuff, but I'm not getting too critical with anything. Nobody's judging me here apart from me, right? You're only as good as your own sort of self-critique. And if you can't critique yourself, let other people critique you, because you need that. You need someone to say, yeah, that's not right, what you've done there, or they've got more experience, therefore they can show you something better. Now, I didn't like when I re-dynameshed, I lost a good bit of detail there, so we're going to bring that up a tiny bit. Yeah, I just want to keep some bits. So I use ZBrush on and off on a kind of weekly basis for different stuff, and sometimes it's trivial things like I need to make a rock. You know, it's just a tool for me. I don't profess to be a character artist specifically, but I know what it takes. I know the workflow. I know it takes a long time. Therefore, for me, it's not very it's not very profitable for me, because it's my main job is making content, and to make a character could take about 2 or 3 months to get it all fully done, rigged and animated, textured, all from a sculpt. So you basically, the workflow is you're going to sculpt in ZBrush your character, right? In fact, let's go even further back. You're going to come up with an idea of a character, right? What kind of environment, what kind of game they're going to be in, right? So you come up with that. And if you're good at 2D skills, you're going to do some sketches, right? If you're good at drawing or painting, you know, you can try your hand at that. If you're good at sculpting, you might be able to draw, maybe not. So maybe you want to give it to an artist to give you some ideas, and you know, come up with a decent concept. So I paid an artist one time to help refine my concept and ideas. Just give them some reference and some money and let them go, and then to come up with a decent design, which I'm using for one of my games I'm working on. And yeah, that's really slow progress. It's just a side hobby, that game. I'm just putting my own time into it until it's at a point. I'm actually waiting on Unreal Engine 5 official release before actually starting it. Makes it nice, and gives me enough time to really think about any logistics and the story and stuff like that. I'm just gonna spent too much time perfecting that ear there, because I'm trying to talk at the same time. But yeah, so I use ZBrush on and off quite a lot. I do a lot of different things. But so what you're going to do is you're going to have your character designed, do a ZBrush sculpt of it, mainly the body. You might change the outfit, right? But getting that body right is important. There's like an Easter Island head. So ear needs to be further back and smaller, much smaller. Just a little bit of placement here. And so once you've got your character sculpted, doesn't have to be an outfit. Outfit can be done separately. You just need to get the base shape right. All sculpted, and then you want to re-topologize it, which means you're going to change the underlying geometry, and then change the underlying geometry, and then you project all that detail into a normal map, and that normal map would match. So in fact, you need to UV it. Once you've retopologized, you need to UV it, you need to project all your details, and then you can apply that, and that will make it look like it's got detail again. So instead of it being 1 million, 2 million polys, it's somewhere between 30 and 100 polys. And oops. Let's get a bit closer to this, bit by bit. So once you've got that normal map, and you can bake out other maps like ambient occlusion, curvature, position, gradients, and all these things, world space, normal map, height map. You can basically give them to your sculpting tool, your texturing tool, such as Substance Painter, and then start to paint your texture for your base body. And you can do the same thing for the clothing and armor and weapons and whatever sort of secondary stuff there is. So still not, this base isn't good enough yet. You might think, oh, that looks pretty good, but nah, it's still lots of stuff. I usually know when I'm getting close, when I run out of things to fix and to look at, right? And I'm nowhere near that. I keep seeing things to fix, right? Loads of things, and to be honest, I've probably still got too much detail, so I could dial it back a bit. Let's go 48. In fact, let's just see if it's 50 something, 56, right? And just to reduce that a bit more, because sometimes you get lost in the woods, right? And there's too many trees, you can't see the woods for the trees. That's where that term comes from. So it's like too much going on. Don't know where you are. Right, so I just want rough shapes. Just imagine it's like a low quality image. I'll bounce around quite a fair bit before I get to the point where it starts to look good. Get kind of Paris Hilton look there. But yeah. Now that whole process of making a character from ideation to 2D concept to 3D model, 3D sculpt to retopologized 3D model, UV'd, textured, throw it into a game engine or whatever. Well, you're going to want to rig it, get some animation on there. I'm doing this such a bad way. That's alright, I'm just imagining it. Oh, it's like John Cena now. It will go through phases, many ugly phases of looking like different people, and that is just the way it goes for a while. Your imagination starts to think, oh, it's starting to look like someone else. It will do that. It will look like plastic surgery for a while. It's slowly resembling, very slowly, like 1% looks like Charlize Theron somewhere, somehow. So once you've got your character rigged and animated in your game, yeah, like clothing's kind of secondary, because with clothing, once you've got clothes on your character, you kind of want to hide bits of the base mesh, otherwise you'll get poked through from different skin weights or different numbers of polys. You know, you try to make a curve shape when they twist, and there's less polys in the body than there is in the clothing, then you're going to get some polygons poking through. There's loads of things to think about. It gets much more technical, and it's only really experience that tells you these things, and a lot of common sense as well. You have to think about it. Like, so some of that time is taken up by thinking about stuff, the process. Don't feel too judged. The best judge is yourself, right? If you've already made the judgment about something and someone says, oh yeah, that neck's too thin, like you're basically saying, yeah, I know that's what's going to get fixed next. But don't show the world stuff that's unfinished, because then you're going to feel like shit when people are criticising it, and you're like, yeah, I knew that, and then people are like, why didn't you fix it? Because I'm lazy and I thought it looked good and I'm going to do that anyway, and yada yada yada. Just, don't show the world it until it's at a good stage. I'm going to show you something here which is quite cool. So if you hold down Control and Shift, right, by default you've got this, right, which hides or reveals certain bits. You can hold down Alt and it'll do the opposite, right, take away, right. But what I want to do is hold that down and change it. So I'm just going to open the little brush thing here because I got rid of it. So I'll do Control Shift and I click this. So it's like now give me a different bunch of stuff which will happen when I press Control and Shift, and I want clip curve, right? So I can get rid of that and Control and Shift, drag, right? Now it's snapping because I'm still holding down Shift. If I let go of Shift and still holding Control and then I use space, I can move it around. I just want a nice cut here in the neck, right? It's just crunched all that geometry up. If I do Shift F, it's just squashed all that up. If I hold down Shift, you'll see I can sort of separate some of that up, smooth it a wee bit. Right, but I just wanted that. It just looks easier on my eye. Right, slowly getting somewhere. So I'm trying to match the angle a bit. And the annoying thing is I need to go sort of the middle of the screen here for this to work, because the perspective is pushing it left and right, right? So I just want to move the reference over. Let's actually expand that panel to use up some of that space. And this is more kind of central. Now I could change the document size as well. Just go up to document and set the size and things. Right, so I'll make this more of a like less width, right? And click resize, sure. Just drag it out again, and then edit, Control N to clear the previous one, and now it's kind of in the middle, and just kind of get that a wee bit better. Right, so these eyes are way too big. I mean, whatever I've sculpted here is too big. So I'm just going to use the move brush and just sort of pull some of that in. You can either sculpt it or move it, whatever suits you, right? But I just want to bring in a bit more. Just little fine tunes. And then the nose. So we'll get to a point where I can't really do much more detail wise. But detail is a bad word at this point. At most points until the very end, detail is a bad word. I'm shaping it right. Now shape suggests big things. I'm shaping it, I'm not looking to rush this out. You know, if you're making a game and you basically throw in your main character, like your finished spaceship. Let's say you've got a shoot 'em up game and you've finished the main player sprite, right, of the spaceship, and you throw it into your game and it looks great, you've added some bullets to it and you've added some sound effects to it, and that's all working, and basically you start showing people it, they'll just be like, it's just a spaceship shooting, where's the rest of it? Why is the spaceship so detailed and like the sky is just some dots? Like, you know, where's the rest of it? So just edge your way towards that, but do it in stages. Like, so if I spent a bit of time on these lips, I kind of want to do a bit of time on everything else. Jaws are a little bit more square. See that, straight down almost, and then curve. Kind of have it, but I just think I want to pull these out a wee bit. The ears can come out a bit more. I'm going to use that move brush and then hold down Alt and drag to the right. It's actually pulling it forward. See that? That's handy. And of course, like, my memory's building up as well. Every time I'm looking at these images, my memory's kind of getting a bit of a better build up of how everything looks. There's actually a good reference for the cheeks there, because that little kind of flange, what a good word, Now, I need to watch though. This pose, she's smiling, so that cheek is getting pushed out more. I need to watch. I don't let that affect me too much. Because that could throw other things off. Right. Just notch in some suggestion of the eyebrow. I'm just using the clay build up very lightly. I'm starting to see things that are wrong with it, especially this weird ass chin. And then this lip is suddenly got broken. So Dynamesh is not your friend, right? It's never going to help, especially if you're getting fussy too soon. Don't get too fussy, don't get too detailed. That is a trap that you'll fall into 100,000 times until you just tell yourself to focus on the bigger shapes, right? Bigger shapes. So cheek size, you know, a good size like that. Everything should be just the big shapes, because you'll miss them if you're focusing on detail too much, right? And that's the detail goes on top of those, right? If they're not there, what's the point in jumping to detail? Because what you'll do is you'll wrestle with that detail so much and be like, yeah, it's not right, that's not right, it's not right, it's something not right. It's the underlying structure that's not right. There's probably a lot wrong with this, but it's better than how it started, so therefore I should save it, right? I should actually save it. Just work on the desktop, and I'll call this CT study. Right, a few things are annoying me, and that is the lips. I've spent too much detail. I've put too much detail in there, and I'm getting nitpicky. I'm like, oh, that's not perfect, but these won't be perfect for a while, right? Just need to get the placement right and not worry so much, right? Nostrils, that's a detail. Just see if I can sort of build these shapes up a bit better. If I had a little percentage meter somewhere that basically told me how accurate it was, it would be great to have some AI in there. It's like, okay, your sculpt is 20% accurate. Then I know that I've got a lot more to do, right? And in the future, we'll just be piping information into some, you could probably do it now. You can pipe all these images into some generator and it'll be like, yep, I could give you a good base to start with. Hell, it might even get to the point of texturing it and everything. You'll just be like, lazy. It's not lazy, really, it's technology. Technology is there to solve problems, and it will always continue to solve problems or make your life easier, right? That's what technology is. It's there to make your life easier. Whether it's accurate or not, that's why I got so many tools, right? Because certain tools are better. Marmoset tool bag is better for texture baking than Substance Painter, right? Substance Painter is faster because you're just getting ready to texture something. UV mapping, now this is all arbitrary, subject to opinion, right? But certain tools do certain jobs better, is what I'm trying to say. And technology is always there, kind of solving that problem, and certain software. So it's not always the hardware, it's the software as well. Right, so we've got a few little kind of paddy bits here and there, which will help. These are just, I know we're getting smaller than the cheek size, getting to eyeball size. But we're still just working in 12,000 points in Dynamesh. Still something a bit manly about it, like here's looking a bit, yeah, a bit Arnoldish, and I think it's the little dip under the lip which I keep coming back to. Because I keep using smooth, I keep losing it, and then I keep trying to fix the chin and pulling it out. So it's just as long as I recognise those things. And look, now it looks kind of like a big bottom lip because oh, it just does. The lips are too big now, so I just want to adjust those a bit. The lips are just big in general, too big in general. So just take those down a wee bit more, and inflate that a bit. Right, closer. The problem now is the smile doesn't match the image, so I'm just going to bring it back halfway, because at the end of the day my expression is going to be a mixture of these, more than likely. She's got a kind of smile there, you know, a little kind of in the eyes, so it's good because a lot of these, they show the same smile. This is good for the proportions. This is good for some details. This shows a little bit maybe more kind of the fat is, little dimples and things. But as I go, I can find more reference, you know, as I get to that point where I need more detail, I can find more reference. Now, there's a few bits wrong with the head here. Oops. Just skim that up a bit. And the neck's maybe not wide enough, so there is a good front on reference. A wee bit side on. If I just turn it like that way I can get the neck right. And what it is it just needs to start to make its way to the shoulders. Right, let's have a look at that again. So sometimes that happens, you just go too rounded and there is like a bit of a flattening here. Just bring it up a bit and a bit. Right. Maybe a little wider. Try to find those distinct shapes. Right, that's not bad. I feel like I want to bring it up a bit more. So a good way to do this, I find, is just to like subdivide it. So Shift and D will give you a subdivision. Is it Shift and D? Control D, sorry. Control and D will give you a subdivision, and then you can like delete lower. In fact, that's another thing I like in my UI. So I've got my subtool, geometry, sorry. Enable customize, divide up there. Lower res, higher res, subdivision, and I want to delete lower, right? I don't often delete higher, but if I need that, I'll come in here. Right, that's all good. Turn off enable customize, store config. I also want to store any keyboard key thingies, so I've got the hotkeys, keyboard shortcuts, and just do store. Right, so that's now remembered those. So I've got a bit more detail because I subdivided with smooth on. It's a bit better than recalculating with Dynamesh. Do I want to turn off Dynamesh? Probably. Do I want to Z-remesh it? Probably. Yeah, it gets to a point where Dynamesh is no longer kind of beneficial. So I've turned that off. Let's just delete lower, go to subtool, and I'm just going to duplicate that so I can Z-remesh it. Let's just go to the top one, make sure I'm in solo as well. So I'm going to make that a shortcut actually. I'll make that S. Right, it's just a nice button for that. Z-remesh it. Let's see what it does with the default. The lips aren't great, but that's fine. I can force it to be better if I wanted. I'm not having an open mouth. Right, it's just going to be a flat face study. I won't do any mouth or teeth. Might put an eyeball in, but I'll just keep the mouth closed. Right, so that's a bit better to work with. If I don't like it, I'll just undo, and I just want to like really emphasize the lips a bit more, so I could divide that again. I just want to like get certain features working properly when I Z-remesh, so I'm just forcing in some shapes and hope that it kind of follows the grooves and things like that. Right, and this is where you might be tempted to be like, oh, that's a great surface, I'll just work from there. Right, but I'm still not done with the base. All I want is just a better geometry to work on, so Z-remesh that, and hopefully this bit holds a bit better. I'm at 5,000 something points for this, so I was at 12,000 something for for Dynamesh, and so I'm at 9,400 for this one. Still not happy with the topology there, so I need to force it again. Oops. Shift F, and I'm just gonna like really draw on that one as well. Right, I'm just really kind of forcing it to follow those shapes. Right, I can draw kind of curves and lines and things and get it to try and follow some shapes, because these don't matter right now. I'll fix these as soon as the topology is better. Right, I just like making little guides this way. Right, may detect it better. I'm going to bring up that adaptive size up to 90. Let's go for a higher target with 10, right? Z-remesh. Don't mind that this base is a bit more. It's not going to be the final topology if I was doing a proper game character. But for this, it's fine. I want a decent base. Some people go Dynamesh all the way, right? You could go Dynamesh all the way, but I don't want to do that. Oh my god, that really messed up there. Right, let's try that again. Let's just try a different method. So another method you could use. Let's just do that, right? Is to decimate it first. This feels like a little bit of an interruption in this little workflow, but I kind of want to just fast track to different things that you can do further down the line. You might have spent longer at this, like getting it to this stage, but I'm not worried about accuracy. I'm more kind of like just teaching you the workflow. It's up to you how long you take or spend on any stage. I recommend taking as long as you can, especially if you're learning. So I'm going to go to the Z plugins and go to Decimation Master, right? I want to dock this panel, and I'm just going to decimate to 20k to see what I get. Right, and it's giving me something, and what it does is it keeps the details where it needs it. So I'm going to do decimate 50% pre-process current, so it's only that subtool, and decimate current. right? And it's keeping detail where I need it. And then I'll use the Z remesher, right? And it might do a better job at this, right? Slightly better job. I'm just going to click it again. Getting closer. Right, not quite there yet. And if I do Alt and click, I think that's Shift and click. There's different algorithms that it can follow, so I'll just undo a few of those. I'm just going to do Control and click. Not much difference there. Shift and click. Yeah. All right. So at this point, I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to use the Z remesher guide. So BZ guides, right? And I'll just make that fairly small, and I'll see if I can force it to do what I want, right? Just by drawing in some stuff like that. Just throw these in. Usually I'm a bit willy-nilly with them to see what happens. Right, that should do it. Now do the Z remesher, but I want to bring up the panel, so I need to bring up Tool. Go with the Z remesh, and I do want to use the guide, so it's got this curve strength. I'll just leave that at 50. Oh, there's the legacy mode as well. You can also try that. So I'm going to try Z remesher guides. And it's a little bit better. Still not followed that very well, so I could increase the curve strength. Greater adaptation size. Let's try legacy. Oh, let's turn that off. Let's undo. Let's try with Shift. Let's try with Control. But even higher there. Not quite getting this shape. I think it's always going to struggle a bit. And this is a bit messed up. It's 40,000 points as well. Let's undo that and bring that target all the way down. Right, you know what, that would just do it. 12,000 points. A few bits messed up here and there, but it's fine. Okay, so just move that out a bit. This is really just me showing you kind of a workflow anyway. I'm not really worried about how close to likeness I get for this, but it's just a workflow for you guys to use. Now I'm using my memory a little bit because I like to do that. I like to just not look at the photograph and just throw some things in and check to see if that kind of makes sense. And it's because I've looked at those photographs enough times that I'm kind of sure there's something there, but I should really double check. Right. And now I'm working a slightly better geometry. I can divide that to about 50,000, and now I can work on those kind of like smaller shapes a bit better. And I don't want to lose symmetry mode too soon, right, either. But I can start to bring in some extra bits here and there. I usually just like to block them in and smooth them out, but everybody works different, and you know, you can disapprove or approve of my method, but this is just the way I like to roll with it. And I like that kind of clean surface to work on, so that's all nice. So there's wee fatty bits under the eyebrow there, And yeah, I could carve in where the eye goes to some degree, and that will help, but don't depend on the eyes, and definitely don't sculpt them in like this and call it a day. Keep the eyes separate. That's just freaky, right? Keep the eyes as separate eyeballs and make the actual hole for them. Right, so just flatten that out, or use inverted inflate. So get the inflate brush and hold down Alt, and that will push all that in. Right, now I was tempted to Dynamesh it there because the topology's changed, but I am not worried one bit about any of that just yet. I'm still, at the end of the day, just getting a base in. Just trying to get a base to work in. There will be certain features and stuff that comes later that kind of is distinct of her, but I do need that foundation, right? Right, and how do you know the foundation's right? When do you know when to stop? Well, when you stop finding things to fix. And it's becoming good at that. It's becoming good at observation, like finding those things that you need to correct, right, in order for it to work. You're training yourself to get good at that as you go, because every sculpt or likeness that you do will be different based on the reference that you find, or just the complexity of the face. Are females harder than males? Possibly, because especially if you're a male making a female face, because you see your own face all the time, and what happens is you'll get this ugly phase of it looking like a man for quite a while. And it's the best thing is just to take a break, you know, come back to it later if you're struggling with that sort of thing. So why did it come out of Dynamesh so quickly? That's another good question. Well, I've got a good enough base for the topology to be decent enough to work with. The topology that Remesher creates, that is. Look how wrong those lips are. I feel in my mind, I'm not showing you guys the best sort of example of this, only because I'm getting that kind of like a bit impatient with it, and I'm not using the most straightforward method. I'm getting a bit kind of, shit, what is the best way to show you guys this, and a bit mixed up. And I'm using a lot of brushes that you don't see as well, so I feel like you're missing out. But basically I'm using a lot of pinch, move, and trim dynamic, and smooth. And then again, I will rush into detail to make some fundamental marks I want to make. Oops, turned off perspective there. Just to feel like I'm making some headway with the shapes, but I won't really kind of call them done. I kind of put them in there as marks for me to feel that I'm heading in the right direction. I don't spend too long there. I'm just kind of like, okay, there's something here, I'm just going to mark that in. And I'm not kind of rushing to final detail. I'm just making marks of, is there something kind of here? And kind of feeling my way through it. And every now and again I will reposition stuff and resize bits. Like this head feels too tall now. Feels a bit too tall. There's a lot more space here than there is there. Look at that. It's like that's making it look manly. The lips are, well, kind of flatter here and down there. There's a bit of a smirk here, and a little fatty bit there, and a little dimple here. So yeah, I'm laying this in as a kind of foundation that helps to build this up. There's a lot more happening with the cheek here. So kind of shape on the nose. Okay. And now I just want to fix a few bits that just look out by a million miles. Just smooth them out. I could work on the ear more as well, but I'm not too fussed about that. Right. Starting to see a lot of things wrong. The more I look at it, I'm starting to see more things wrong with it. Oh, I can't move this. Zoom into that one a bit more again. Okay. I don't have the topology I like, and it's kind of making a decision point of when to switch to better topology, but sometimes I jump back and forward, making the topology good, come back and do a bit more, you know, and jump around a lot, and I think that's just part of my frustration sometimes, just coming through and trying to get it, you know, too right. But if you're making a game character and not like a likeness study, you're just using it as a guide anyway. It's kind of like a good starting point. There's a lot wrong with this mouse. It's kind of poking out too much here. No, the problem is I'm trying to get too much detail in at this point. I think I'll just try Z-remesh it. Yeah, complete mess that one. Try again. I think my Z-remesh guides mixed up with that. BZ guides. Oh. Let's see if I can lay in some better guides. Bit better actually, so I'm just going to ramp up that resolution. Okay, yeah, that's a better model to work with now. That's why you don't want to sort of just jump to doing wrinkles and stuff. Like, think about wrinkles as 100 hours away. The end of the journey. Still nowhere near where I want to be, because I'm not convinced yet that I'm right about a lot of this. If I was doing a likeness study, I feel like there's a lot of ground not being covered. nose is way too big. Of course, like if I was to go away and come back, I would see even more things wrong with it. Eyes are too high. Still some ugly phases I'm going through with this, for sure. That's not the best picture. I only chose that picture because it shows like the full body. It helps. Right. So I try and match the angle. Look how many things are wrong here. Like the nose is so much shorter. There's a little kind of bump here, I guess. I just want to knock that in with a little bit of clay tubes. It's got a lot more happening with the eye here. So I find this bit up here the hardest, for sure. I mean, all of it's difficult, but that bit there is really a pain in the butt. A lot of people think they'll just throw in the wrinkles and it'll look like like, oh, these wrinkles are so signature to her, and like throw them in, they'll look good. Yeah, go for it, knock yourself out. And then you'll get somebody like Hossein Diba blow your mind with how accurate he can get a likeness, and he's spent about 3,000 hours on it. Yeah, I mean, you can go that far, right? If you're like me, you just want to get a result fairly quickly and you don't mind a stylized look. You know, there's a lot of patience involved in getting a good likeness. Okay, what's this? Okay. Just laugh at how many ugly phases this goes through until it looks worthy. Like, it looks like a piece of crap right now, I'm sorry to say. Looks nothing like Charlize Theron, and just a lot more work need to get done with it. But yeah, this is definitely a lesson for you guys that are getting into sculpting, doing likeness studies, that you will not get anything near what you want within the first couple of hours. Not anywhere near, especially when you're starting out. Until you get good at spotting things and a good workflow, you're going to be stuck in ugly land for a while. So I've got a 36,000 point mesh. I want to stay here as long as possible, and I'm pretty sure there's enough geometry in the places I need it now through Remesher to do a decent job. There'll be a few bits that I'll wrestle with, like this eye here, trying to get that eyelid sort of lipping over here, and that kind of bulge up here is going to be tricky, but something like that is enough. I don't want it all lumpy as well, so I need to make sure I'm kind of smoothing that back out again and getting everything to the same kind of z-axis. So it's important to check different angles and pushing and pulling it a bit, smooth it out. That looks like as what happens to all my work, they start to look oriental. As you're smoothing, if you hold down shift, you can bring the intensity down, and if you're smoothing, you let go of shift, use a slightly different algorithm. It's pretty handy. So just let go of it, got very little strength in there. So let's bring that up, so holding down shift, and I've let go of shift and I'm still pressing. And it does something slightly different, just enough to change it. Oh. Now I've got a man again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's starting to look like Reese Witherspoon a little bit. Not the lips, the eyes, like that kind of, yeah. I think it's no Reese Witherspoon. She's a different person. What's that one that does Thingy's Diary? I don't even know what I'm talking about. British actress. I don't know my actresses. Sorry, I failed you. So another good thing about likeness studies is you end up with these nice base meshes that you can sort of branch off and make your own characters from in the future. So even though you might balls up the likeness, you can be like, oh, I can use it for a character, because now it doesn't look like Charlize Theron, it just looks like a different person completely, and even then it might look like a man, like mine. And this is what happens. It looks like a man for a while. I'm afraid that's just the way it goes. If you're a man, that sculpt is going to look like a man at some point. Trust me. Always happens. Because we're used to seeing our own jawline in the mirror so often. You know, we look up to men as icons, superheroes, etc. That's just the way it goes. Let's try and find a better profile again. This one. I definitely don't have enough practice in me with this sort of thing. I'm out of practice by about a year. I think it was a year ago I last looked at a likeness study, and even then I was just kind of locking in big shapes and then throwing subdiv in and just jumping into some detail. But I'm learning not to. I'm learning to sort of stick maybe to this level for as long as I can and just keep working it. So much noise in the background. These lips are just not doing any sort of justice to this. Sometimes you need to forget about the reference and just fix things manually, like based on just more realistic sort of proportions in your mind, because the reference can just throw you out too much sometimes. Right, I think I'm going to call it a day here because I do need to sort of take a break from it and come back. It's about 2% there, so there's plenty more time could be thrown into that. It's a decent base, although it could benefit from another retopology, and I just need a break from it. There's a lot of things wrong with it. That ear is way too far back, chin's too far out. But these are things I'll likely pick up on next time, so I'm just going to save over that. Call the stream and this video a day. Hopefully in the next part I'll get it a bit better, but I'll take a few days break from it. And if you want extra help on using ZBrush, if you've just bought ZBrush Core or you've got ZBrush and you need some help getting started, I do game dev mentors for $45 an hour, and can teach you most things to do with game art, getting you started especially. I'm a kind of widespread generalist and technical artist. I do loads of shader stuff. I make assets for the stores and make a living from selling assets and doing freelance work. So if you guys ever want to sort of get started in that, feel free to get in touch. I'll put a link in the description here to that and some other things. So thanks for watching this video. I hope to catch you in the next part where I will take this a little step further. Bye for now.